The Looms and the Library. Through receiving this information, I developed a relationship and knowledge of the Savior that I will always cherish. His concern for my feelings was inspiring. He never wanted to do or say anything that would offend me. He knew what I was capable of understanding, and he carefully prepared me to absorb all of the knowledge that I sought. In the spirit world, no one is made to feel uncomfortable by being forced to do or accept things for which they are not prepared. Patience is a natural attribute there. I'll never forget the Lord's sense of humor, which was as delightful and quick as any here. Far more so. Nobody could outdo his humor. He is filled with perfect happiness, perfect goodwill. There is a softness and grace in his presence, and I had no doubt that he is a perfect man. I knew him, his spirit, his feelings, his concern for me. I felt his kinship with me, and I knew that we were family. I felt that his relationship to me was both like a father and an older brother. He was close to me, but there was also an element of authority. He was tender and good-natured, but also responsible. I knew with the sure knowledge that he would never misuse his authority, that he would never even desire to do so. Still surrounded by light, Jesus smiled at me, and I felt his approval. He turned to his left and introduced me to two women who had just appeared. A third woman also appeared briefly behind them, but she appeared to be on an errand and only stopped to visit for a moment. Jesus instructed the first two women to escort me, and I felt their happiness at being with me. As I looked at them, I remembered them. They were my friends. They had been two of my close friends before I came to earth, and their excitement at being with me again was as great as my own. As Jesus was about to leave me with them, I felt his amusement again, and he seemed to whisper to my spirit, "Go learn of things." And I understood that I was free to see and experience all that I wanted. I was thrilled that there was still more to learn, much more as it would turn out. The Savior left us then, and my two friends embraced me. The love here encompassed all. Everybody had it. Everybody was happy. Although there was a vast difference in the light and power between these women and Christ, their love was unconditional. They loved me with all of their hearts. The memory of that tour has been partially taken from me. I remember being taken into a large room where people were working, but I don't remember how we got there or what the building looked like from the outside. The room was beautiful. Its walls were made of some kind of substance, perhaps like a very thin marble, that let light come in, and in places I could see through it to the outside. The effect was very interesting and beautiful. As we approached the people, I saw that they were weaving on large, ancient-looking looms. My first impression was how archaic to have manual looms in the spirit world. Standing by the looms were many spiritual beings, male and female, and they greeted me with smiles. They were delighted to see me and moved back from one of the looms to let me have a better look. They were anxious for me to see the workmanship of their hands. I went closer and picked up a piece of the cloth that they were weaving. Its appearance was like a mixture of spun glass and spun sugar. As I moved the cloth back and forth, it shimmered and sparkled, almost as though it were alive. The effect was startling. The material was opaque on one side, but when I turned it around, I was able to see through it. Being transparent from one side and opaque on the other, similar to a two-way mirror, obviously had a purpose, but I wasn't told what the purpose was. The workers explained that the material would be made into clothing for those coming into the spirit world from Earth. The workers were understandably pleased with their work and with my gratitude for being permitted to see it. We moved from the looms, my two companions and I, and went through many other rooms where I saw amazing things and wonderful people, but I have not been allowed to recall many of these details. I remember the feeling of traveling for days or weeks and never tiring. I was surprised at how much people like to work with their hands there, those who want to. They enjoy creating devices that are helpful to others, both here and there. I saw a large machine similar to a computer, but much more elaborate and powerful. The people working on this too were pleased to show me their work. Again, I understood that all things of importance are created spiritually first and physically second. I had no idea of this before. I was taken to another large room similar to a library. As I looked around it, it seemed to be a repository of knowledge, but I couldn't see any books. Then I noticed ideas coming into my mind, knowledge filling me on subjects that I had not thought about for some time, or in some cases not at all. Then I realized that this was a library of the mind. By simply reflecting on a topic as I had earlier in Christ's presence, all knowledge on that topic came to me. I could learn about anybody in history, or even in the spirit world in full detail. No knowledge was kept from me, and it was impossible not to understand correctly every thought, every statement, every particle of knowledge. There was absolutely no misunderstanding here. History was pure. Understanding was complete. I understood not only what people did, but why they did it, and how it affected other people's perceptions of reality. I understood reality pertaining to the subject from every angle, from every possible perception, and all of this brought a wholeness to an event or person or principle that was not possible to comprehend on earth. But this was more than a mental process. I was able to feel what the people felt when they performed these actions. I understood their plans or joys or excitement pains or joys or excitement because I was able to live them. Some of this knowledge was taken from me, but not all. I cherished the knowledge granted me of certain events and people in our history which were important for me to understand. I wanted still more experiences in this wonderful, incredible world, and my escorts were delighted to continue helping me. It was their greatest joy to give me joy, and with some excitement they took me outside to a garden. The garden. As we went outdoors into the garden, I saw mountains, spectacular valleys, and rivers in the distance. My escorts left me, and I was allowed to proceed alone, perhaps to experience the full beauty of the garden unencumbered by the presence of others. The garden was filled with trees and flowers and plants that somehow made their setting seem inevitable, as if they were meant to be exactly how and where they were. I walked on the grass for a time. It was crisp, cool, and brilliant green, and it felt alive under my feet. But what filled me with awe in the garden more than anything were the intense colors. We have nothing like them. When light strikes an object here, the light reflects off that object in a certain color. Thousands of shades are possible. Light in the spirit world doesn't necessarily reflect off anything. It comes from within and appears to be a living essence. A billion colors are possible. The flowers, for example, are so vivid and luminescent with color that they don't seem to be solid. Because of each plant's intense aura of light, it is difficult to define where the plant's surface starts and stops. It is obvious that each part of the plant, each microscopic part, is made up of its own intelligence. This is the best word I can use to define it. Every minute part is filled with its own life and can be reorganized with other elements to create anything in existence. The same element that now resides in a flower may later be part of something else and just as alive. It doesn't have a spirit as we do, but it has intelligence and organization and can react to the will of God and other universal laws. All of this is evident as you see creation there, and particularly evident in the flowers. A beautiful river ran through the garden not far from me, and I was immediately drawn to it. I saw that the river was fed by a large cascading waterfall of the purest water, and from there the river fed into a pond. The water dazzled with its clarity and life. Life! It was in the water too. Each drop from the waterfall had its own intelligence and purpose. A melody of majestic beauty carried from the waterfall and filled the garden, eventually merging with other melodies that I was now only faintly aware of. The music came from the water itself, from its intelligence, and each drop produced its own tone and melody which mingled and interacted with every other sound and strain around it. The water was praising God for its life and joy. The overall effect seemed beyond the ability of any symphony or composer here. In comparison, our best music here would sound like a child playing a tin drum. We simply don't have the capacity to comprehend the vastness and strength of the music there, let alone begin to create it. As I got closer to the water, the thought came to me that these could possibly be the living waters mentioned in the scriptures, and I wanted to bathe in them. As I approached the water, I noticed a rose near me that seemed to stand out from the other flowers, and I stopped to examine it. Its beauty was breathtaking. Among all the flowers there, none captured me like this one. It was gently swaying to faint music and singing praises to the Lord with sweet tones of its own. I realized that I could actually see it growing. As it developed before my eyes, my spirit was moved, and I wanted to experience its life, to step into it and feel its spirit. As this thought came to me, I seemed to be able to see down into it. It was as though my vision had become microscopic and allowed me to penetrate the rose's deepest parts. But it was much more than a visual experience. I felt the rose's presence around me as if I were actually inside and part of the flower. I experienced it as if I were the flower. I felt the rose swaying to the music of all the other flowers, and I felt it creating its own music, a melody that perfectly harmonized with the thousands of other roses joining it. I understood that the music in my flower came from its individual parts, that its petals produced their own tones, and that each intelligence within that petal was adding to its perfect notes, each working harmoniously for the overall effect, which was joy. My joy was absolutely full again. I felt God in the plant, in me, His love pouring into us. We were all one. I will never forget the rose that I was. That one experience, just a glimmer of the grander joy that is available in the spirit world, is being one with everything else, was so great that I will cherish it forever. The greeting party. Into the garden came a group of spiritual beings. Many were wearing soft pastel gowns now, reflecting perhaps the spirit of the location as well as the occasion. They surrounded me, and I felt that they were gathering to celebrate a sort of graduation party for me. I had died, or graduated, as their term seemed to indicate, and they were there to greet me. Their faces were beaming with delight, as though they were looking at a child who had just enjoyed something incredibly delicious for the first time. I realized that I remembered them all from before my earth life, and I ran to them and hugged and kissed each one. My ministering angels, my dear monks, were there again, and I kissed them. As I felt each of their spirits, I realized that they were there to support me. My escorts, who continued to act as my guides, now told me that I had died prematurely, and that this wasn't really a graduation party, but a time to show me what I would receive when I returned at the right time. They were very happy to see me and to support me, but they knew I had to go back. Then they explained to me about death. When we die, my guides said, we experience nothing more than a transition to another state. Our spirits slip from the body and move to a spiritual realm. If our deaths are traumatic, the spirit quickly leaves the body, sometimes even before death occurs. If a person is in an accident or fire, for example, their spirit may be taken from their body before they experience much pain. The body may actually appear still alive for some moments, but the spirit will have already left and in a state of peace. At the time of death, we are given the choice to remain on this earth until our bodies are buried, or to move on, as I did, to the level to which our spirit had grown. I understood that there are many levels of development, and we will always go to that level where we are most comfortable. Most spirits choose to remain on earth for a short time and comfort their loved ones. Families are subject to much more grief than the departed one. Sometimes the spirits will remain longer if the loved ones are in despair. They remain to help the loved ones' spirits heal. I also was told that our prayers can benefit both spiritual beings as well as persons on the earth. If there is a reason to fear for a departed person's spirit, if there is a reason to believe their transition may be difficult or unwanted, we can pray for them and enlist spiritual help. They told me that it is important for us to acquire knowledge of the Spirit while we are in the flesh. The more knowledge we acquire here, the further and faster we will progress there. Because of lack of knowledge or belief, some spirits are virtually prisoners of this earth. Some who die as atheists, or those who have bonded to the world through greed, bodily appetites, or other earthly commitments, find it difficult to move on, and they become earthbound. They often lack the faith and power to reach for, or in some cases even to recognize, the energy and light that pulls us toward God. These spirits stay on the earth until they learn to accept the greater power around them and to let go of the world. When I was in the black mass before moving towards the light, I felt the presence of such lingering spirits. They reside there as long as they want to, in its love and warmth, accepting its healing influence, but eventually they learn to move on to accept the greater warmth and security of God. Of all knowledge, however, there is none more essential than knowing Jesus Christ. I was told that He is the door through which we will all return. He is the only door through which we can return. Whether we learn of Jesus Christ here or while in the Spirit, we must eventually accept Him and surrender to His love. My friends in the garden were full of love as they stood around me, and they realized that I didn't want to go back yet, that I wanted to see more. In their desire to please me, they showed me much more. Many worlds. My memory was opened further than before, reaching back beyond the creation of our earth into eternities past. I remembered that God was the creator of many worlds, galaxies, and realms beyond our understanding, and I wanted to see them. As the desire came, my thoughts gave me power, and I drifted away from the garden, escorted this time by two different beings of light, who then became my guides. Our spiritual bodies floated away from my friends and into the blackness of space. Our speed increased, and I felt the exhilaration of flight. I could do whatever I wanted, go wherever I desired, go fast, incredibly fast, or go slow. I loved the freedom. I entered the vastness of space and learned that it is not a void. It was full of love and light, the tangible presence of the Spirit of God. I heard a soft, pleasant sound, a distant but comforting sound that made me happy. It was a tone similar to a note of music, but was universal and seemed to fill all the space around me. It was followed by another tone at a different pitch, and soon I noticed something of a melody, a vast cosmic song that soothed and comforted me. The tones produced soft vibrations, and as they touched me, I knew that they possessed the power to heal. I knew that anything touched by these tones would receive the effects of their healing. They were like spiritual salve, expressions of love that mended broken spirits. I learned from the escorts traveling with me that not all musical tones are healing, that some can create within us negative emotional responses. I understood now that while I was on earth, Satan had used these negative tones in music, which actually produced illness in my mind and body. Some of the details of what followed have been removed from my memory, but many impressions remain. I seemed to be gone for weeks, even months, visiting the many creations of God. As I traveled, I always felt the comforting presence of God's love. I sensed that I was back in my native environment and was doing only that which was natural. I traveled to many other worlds, Earths like our own, but more glorious and always filled with loving, intelligent people. We are all God's children, and He has filled the immensity of space for us. I traveled tremendous distances, knowing that the stars I saw were not visible from Earth. I saw galaxies and traveled to them with ease and almost instantaneous speed, visiting their worlds and meeting more children of our God, all of them our spiritual brothers and sisters. And all of this was a remembering, a reawakening. I knew that I had been to these places before. Much later, when I returned to my mortal body, I felt cheated when I was unable to remember the details of this experience. But with the passage of time, I have learned that I needed this forgetfulness for my own good. If I could remember the glorious and perfect worlds I had seen, I would live a constantly frustrated life and mar my own God-given mission. My feeling of being cheated was given way to a sense of awe and deep gratitude for the experience. God didn't have to show me other worlds, and He didn't have to let me remember anything about them. In His mercy, though, He has given me much. I saw worlds that our most powerful telescopes could never see, and I know the love that exists there.